This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. An assassin guns down a man in Phnom Penh. A neglected child plummets 7 floors to its death. And why is it there are more illegal drugs than there are users? First, though, our headline story. Now, this story could have come from the pages of a Fleming novel, one where James Bond dwells in the criminal underworld of Eastern Europe, with villains that cross borders with suitcases of illegal cash and guns, using fistfuls of fake passports to cover their tracks. And that is exactly what one man was doing in Phnom Penh. But he was gunned down on its streets. He was a suspected Serbian criminal and was assassinated by a British hitman. The hitman had an alias, and that was Batman. And just like the British James Bond, he only needed one single shot to silence his prey. We here at the Khmer Times have uncovered the footage of that very moment that the killer struck. So, if you are of an extremely sensitive nature, please be warned, the following clip shows graphic violence.
And here is that shocking footage. You will naturally be drawn towards a gentleman who will enter the screen with black top, black trousers, white tennis shoes. He's going for his keys. He is not the guy. You need to look in the top left-hand corner of your screen. Can you see there's a white vehicle parked with its lights on, and there's a guy on the floor, and he's now trying to crawl away? Well, that was the assassination. As we see the assassin himself speeding away from the scene of the crime. But let us take a closer look at what happened there. The Serbian opens the passenger door. There's a flash, a bang, and he goes down. Instinctively, he tries to crawl away from the scene. The assassin speeds away. But it was on that very road that the Serbian was to lose his life. The British assassin called Batman has been arrested over the suspected gang hit on a Serbian criminal. The suspect was detained in Phnom Penh over the alleged murder of Stanja Dakovic outside an upmarket apartment block on Christmas Eve. The CCTV footage we have seen shows the moment that the victim walked up to a white car parked outside his apartment block, only to be blasted at point-blank range by the killer. The victim was fatally wounded. The car sped off, leaving him to his fate, and he later died where he fell. It is still unclear why he was killed, though photos from his social media accounts showed Dakovic posing with firearms and large wads of cash, and it is suspected he was a member of the underworld. But as to why an assassin was sent all the way from England is still unknown. An associate of the criminal underworld in England said to us at the Khmer Times, "If anything, it'll be about drugs. It's nearly always about drugs, or the vast amount of money that's involved with it. He thought he could get away with either stealing the drugs or a large sum of money. The problem with that is he has to be made an example of, no matter what the cost, so as to deter others." The real identity of the hitman is not known, as he had a list of identities, including Joseph Schwartz, Jason Vanazza, Alan Bradley Wilson, James Spader, and Paul Richardson. At current, he is not talking, frustrating police efforts to uncover exactly why the Serbian criminal was resident within the capital, and what was his connection to the London-based assassin. One man is dead, and the other sits in a police cell silent, both pawns in a much larger game, involving potentially millions of dollars that stretches from the streets of Phnom Penh to organised crime in Serbia. And it may well be the killer called Batman will spend his time in jail and not say a word as to who ordered the hit. But our underworld connection in England has one more thing to say on that. He may not talk, but I'm sure those who want him to remain silent will find a way of sending him money. It's always the same. You want them to stay hush, you pay extra cash. It guarantees their continued silence. So follow the money arriving at prison, and that's who ordered the hit on the Serb.
A quick look now at two stories making headlines this week. Both have a theme, and that is neglect and cruelty to children. The first is of the death of a 3-year-old child who was left alone in an apartment. The mother had left the infant unattended to go shopping, a decision she has the rest of her life to regret, as that child found its way to a window and fell from the 7th floor and died on the pavement below. The second story is of a grandfather who has been arrested for the drowning of his own grandson, which on its own stretches belief beyond the very edges of credulity. But the police were even more horrified when they discovered the boy had been so savagely beaten, the child's neck had snapped in the furious assault.
In our first story, authorities have now confirmed that it was a 3-year-old child that fell from the 7th floor of a Phnom Penh condo this week, after it had been left alone in the apartment. The child's mother assumed that the child would be safe, enclosed within the locked apartment, as she went out to collect some food. But she was so very wrong. For at approximately 11:30 a.m. that morning, her world was to change forever. Authorities say that the 3-year-old Chinese girl had done what none expected and had climbed up onto the toilet seat in the bathroom, and she had then crawled through an open window and fell to her death on the pavement below. Our second story is of an evil grandfather now under arrest for abusing and then drowning his own grandson. And if you want to know what evil looks like, he's on your screen now. The 52-year-old man from Siem Reap murdered his grandson, a child who was just 3 years old, the same age as the girl in the previous story. And what this man did to such a fragile infant is beyond belief. Police believed at first it could be a straightforward accidental drowning, but closer inspection revealed a child that had been severely beaten, so badly that its neck was broken. There were also severe bruises, dislocated shoulder blades, bruised ribs, and even feces coming out of the child's anus, as it had been hit so hard. Now that is an exceedingly unpleasant image, but it graphically shows how violent and vicious this attack was. So what was it that caused the attack? So I will read to you now the reason that was given for pulverizing this 3-year-old child. And when I have said it, I will have no more words to say. The grandfather said the reason was he became angry when the child was playing with electrical equipment, and that is why he beat him.
Let us have some light relief from the murder and the mayhem. You, right now, are watching me on the internet. You may also watch sport, documentaries, music videos, or maybe light-hearted animal videos, just like this one.
This is my hamster. His name is Wilbert, and he got stuck in his wheel one day whilst I was cleaning out his cage. And it seems he's accidentally invented perpetual motion. He just went round and round and round and got more and more confused. And to this very day, I have no idea at all as to how he was propelling himself.
No matter what it is you watch, the internet is big business, especially here in Cambodia. But do you ask yourself, where does the internet come from? If pushed, an awful lot of people point a finger upwards to the sky. But they are wrong. The internet is in fact following the exact same paths of primitive telegram, and those paths are deep below the sea. Cables are laid between nations, and it is down those fibre optic cables that the river of information flows. And that traffic is only getting more congested, what with Englishmen doing news shows and daft hamster videos. So to keep up with the demand, there is now a new internet cable connecting Cambodia to Hong Kong, 3,000 kilometres long. It will help to speed up your internet.
This week, the Minister of Telecommunications kicked off the Hong Kong to Sihanoukville fibre optic cable project. A single cable that is an incredible 2,700 kilometres long that will stretch from Hong Kong and re-emerge in Sihanoukville. It is a titanic feat, and it is scheduled for completion in 2024. The network will increase the capacity to provide high-speed and more comprehensive internet service across the entire country. The minister said that after completion, users would not have to worry about slow internet connection. The country will not only have access to a much better bandwidth, which means faster speeds, but also benefit from cheaper internet services. And Cambodia loves the internet. It has 18 million internet subscribers, but the total population is only 16 million people. So how can that be? We seem to have a magical 2 million people extra. Well, it's because many people have subscribed to more than one internet service. They are just that keen to post selfies on Facebook and have that uncontrollable need to sell face cream to hungry consumers. Whichever it is, Cambodia just has to be connected to the web. And this cable is a huge boost. And those internet sellers are part of a huge business. The market value of e-commerce in Cambodia was $970 million in 2021. But that, projected, is going to rise in 2025 to 1.78 billion. And that is an awful lot of money in anyone's language.
Drugs are always a news story. The use, the abuse, the devastation. But there is something deeper to this story than just rising drug busts and a rise in seizures, for something very odd is happening. And that is, the amount of drugs being seized is far outstripping the amount of drug users being arrested. There is way more drugs, and I mean tons of drugs, but not a substantial increase in users. Why are the numbers so lopsided? Tons of extra drugs being captured, but nobody to consume them. Well, there is one answer, and it does not bode well for the kingdom.
The police arrested 15,000 suspects due to drug crimes last year, and that is an increase of 1,000 compared to 2021. But it is the amount of drugs being seized that tells the real story, as last year seizures were over 14 tons, and that is compared to just 4 tons in 2021. Therein lays the disparity, as we have a 6% increase in arrests, but a 28.5% increase in actual drugs. So why the imbalance? As surely, with a huge increase in the volume of drugs, there will be an equal rise in the consumption and therefore an increase in arrests. But no, we have 6% on arrests being dwarfed by over 28% in actual drugs. The reason could be very disturbing, as what this potentially indicates is a rise in major drug trafficking, drugs being shipped in huge bulks through Cambodia. Just look at some of our recent headlines. 10 tons burnt in Siem Reap. 60 tons destroyed. 6 men arrested with 14 tons. Another 4 tons being captured. Now remember, we are talking tons here. That is lorry loads full of drugs, and those headlines are of recent busts. And with that alarming increase, the authorities have realised that the year 2023 is not only about drug users, but very much about organised crime setting up shop within the kingdom. And their priority will be looking to root them out before their own brand of cancerous rot does untold damage to the country.
With an expanding population comes many issues. Healthcare and welfare services must keep pace and must increase to meet the needs of a growing populace. And one of the basic core needs for any population is to educate the children. Without it, the future could be adversely affected. This is especially pronounced in the countryside. For the cities, there are many private schools to bolster the child's education, but so often in the countryside there is no choice at all. And the shortfalls of teachers could be called chronic, with vacancies for over 3,000 full-time teachers in remote areas. And now the Ministry of Education is acting to defuse the education time bomb that could leave an entire generation of kids left behind.
In an effort to reduce a severe shortage of teachers in remote areas, the Ministry of Education will recruit 3,000 full-time teachers to help rural enclaves so they are not left behind. Even students will be offered the opportunity to go from student to teacher, as they can apply for teaching jobs when sitting their final year examinations. A spokesman said, "We are facing a severe shortage of teachers because Ode Minche province is far from the capital and teachers are just not interested in working here." And in that statement, he has hit the nail squarely on the head. For what is happening is the countryside is being drained of its teachers, as schools in the cities can offer a much more attractive salary and benefits. And that leaves rural areas at a huge disadvantage, one that will blight them for the rest of their lives. Add into the mix that the number of private schools and students are dramatically increasing every year, and that leads to an enormous depletion of teachers within rural areas. It's like the cities are sucking up all the education resources and leaving kids in rural areas with no hope of a brighter educated future. Now, the cure to this is rather simple. It's all down to money. The disparity between wages and benefits for those working in rural areas must be addressed. And that is exactly what the government aims to do. Otherwise, this could become a nation of two separate classes. Those in the city, who are educated, and those in rural areas, who have been deprived of any formal education, and therefore any chance of a brighter future.
And now it's time to look at our sports news.
We sound the bugle as we charge into the Premier League results for the past week, and we see Crystal Palace Brentford 1-1. Fair enough, Palace should have won that one without a doubt. And the big loser this week is Chelsea, who lost 1-0 to Southampton. Now, if you put a bet on that, you would have cleared up some golden coins, that's for sure. Man U won. Never mind, eh? Not everything can happen in your life that you want it to. And Arsenal 4-2 against Aston Villa. Valuable points to keep them at the head of the table.
It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week.
Do you like normalcy in your life? And what I mean by that is, do you order your steaks medium rare? Do you only have blue chip stocks in your share portfolio, and are you in bed by 10 o'clock? Well, if that is the case, this is the weather report for you, because everything is straight down the middle. The temperatures hovering just above the 30-degree mark, humidity high 40s, and there is just a gentle waft of a breeze.
This has been the Khmer Times News. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next weekend for your weekly Roundup.